she was 15, she got mixed up with other groups taking drugs, and eventually ended up in prison, went to India, then went to Cyprus and met her parents. She couldn't settle, and then she came back to London, and we lost sight. That's a very, very sad story that the social services were to blame because they didn't really go deep into the problem. There's a Cypriot couple, not very well educated, ordinary, and they had a different culture, different language, and they took decisions and took the girl away from the mother. That was in the 80s, 90s. In 2000, I had another case, another big Cypriot young girl who met a Morocco young man from France, and they had a little girl, Leah, her name was. The Moroccan man disappeared, and then she stayed with her little girl, and we helped her to find a house not far away from here. And her mother was also involved, the grandmother was involved, they provided help, support to their daughter. One day a neighbor saw the child on the balcony and reported to the social services. The social services came in and eventually took the child away. And they were trying to give it to foster parents, and eventually they agreed to give the child to the grandmother as a foster parent. As a result of these two experiences, we wrote the play Hole in the Heart, which became a kind of a play about three generations: mother, daughter, and granddaughter, who go through the same process. And that was produced in the first decade of 2000. This year, because also we deal about child abuse, there was a young actor who was involved with our theater, and he wrote the play based on his experience. He was taken away from his parents. He was only a little boy, and took into this institution where horrible things happening. Even the satanic cult was part of the whole involvement with the setup. And a lot of the kids had a difficult time and had hardship. And based on his personal experience, he wrote a play called The Orchard House, because there was a beautiful orchard, a very ironic fact. And this is our experience with the subject. Thank you very much. To very good.
Thank you very much, Paul. I want to say thank you for allowing us to use this wonderful space, which lends itself, I think we will find out that it lends itself beautifully to the kind of event we want to have here this afternoon and this evening. This afternoon, I hope everybody knows me, but my name is Belinda Mackenzie, and I've been mainly on the streets campaigning for children's rights and against child abuse and all the rest of it. But this afternoon is one of the rare occasions when I'm inside a room, a proper room, a beautiful room. And I have to say I do feel slightly claustrophobic, because I'm usually on the streets where you can shout to the wind and the rain and the traffic, and you can fluff your words and get things wrong. But in a room you have to pay attention and get it right. So I feel a little bit more nervous than usual. Also, I've been hidden away for 3 months, and people might be aware of the circumstances of that, which I'm not going to go into. That whole issue is represented by this strange contraption in the corner of the room, which I think people might be able to gauge as an elephant. There is something that we're not going to be able to talk about here this afternoon and evening, but we do know that it is still unresolved, still very much in the room, and people know about it, and they wish for that issue to be resolved. So we're just treating it as the elephant in the room for today. What we will be covering will be the 5 issues on the wall, over on that wall over there, which tricked out in pink, which seems to go rather well with the black background, so it's quite successful. And I've put a band between them, because what we want to pass the message today is that all these issues link up, because people come into these issues in their own right. You know, a child has been taken, the police involved sometimes, very horrible actions by the police sometimes in these situations, or they may be going through difficulties in the family court but not have had their children taken yet. Then of course the question is, according to the middle panel, is there some sort of programme on the part of the government to remove children in this rather brutal way, when really most children could be still kept at home within their family. And that's really where children should be kept, unless there's a dire necessity to take them away. But this option doesn't seem to be being considered nearly enough. And so we're all aware of the terrible injustices and suffering and heartache and anguish caused by this, what seems to be a policy, because the numbers apparently are scheduled to rise of children being taken from their birth family, and put up for adoption. And the statistics are pretty alarming. Then, of course, in care, in state care, foster care, or care homes, not all children suffer this, but it can happen. And it's as though the numbers of children taken away and put into care sort of cloak the fact that a smallish proportion, but a very significant proportion, and particularly at the upper age range, get abused in care. And we know this happens because we've had some very brave whistleblowers coming out about what they suffered as children and what is still going on today. And then the last panel, of course, is, you know, referring to this particular beast in the corner of the room, and it really is a beast. I called it RSA, with R for ritual, because some people say we shouldn't really even be talking about it in a public meeting. I rather regret that now. I think we do need to use the S word more. So please substitute in your mind an S for the R up there. And that, of course, is the most difficult issue of all, because that's the one that the public really cannot get their heads around and want to blank out. And it's very difficult to campaign about it. There's no way I can go on the streets and address any passers-by about this issue. It's just too depressing and disturbing for people. So how are we going to deal with it? Well, that's one of the things I think we need to discuss here today. And this is going to be a very interactive meeting. It's not me spouting or anybody spouting. You know, people who want to say something, please either come up here to the front, or there is a roving mic that will go round. But we want this to be interactive. You know, I want to ask you questions. I want to find out things from you, and I think everybody wants to find out things from each other. And particularly, we wanted to know where you come in on one of these 5 issues, which end of the spectrum, or, you know, are you aware of all of the issues and how they link, which is why there's a band between them. You know, that's to show they all link. We want actually to link them all up at this point in time, so that the people who are suffering the horrors of having their child taken away into care can relate to survivors of the very worst form of abuse at the other end of the spectrum. You know, because these are the loneliest people. People who suffered from that form of abuse are the loneliest in our society, and the most least understood, and the most troubled and traumatised. And I have to say, I think probably quite a lot of them end up in mental hospital. So I've been asked to read the 5 items because they're a bit hard to read. So the first one is child snatching, and I actually can't read from here because it says underneath. I think I'll have to go closer to it. Sorry, I'm going to tie your document. Right, so child snatching, social services. I think that the captions underneath, they just explain a bit more about what the issue's about. So it's social services acting unethically on national policy, aided by local police. That's sort of nutshell, that situation. Secret family courts to protect the identity of the child. The 1989 Children's Act specified that this measure of having the proceedings not open to the public anymore was for protection of the child, but unfortunately the child is not protected because that enables the court to do unethical things to the child and the family. And then you have the adoption agencies who put the children's photos up online. So where is the protection of children in that situation? I don't know if anybody's seen these glossy catalogues, but they're literally like shop catalogues, you know, department store catalogues, pages and pages of pretty children with, you know, little bits of text by them to sell them to whoever's going to buy them. It's horrendous. Right, the middle one is UK and EU dimensions of forced adoptions. Children removed against parental will by family court to fulfil national and international agendas. We put a question mark after that because this is really where we have to be a little bit hypothetical. It's beginning to look as though it's not just a national agenda but possibly an international agenda. And so what's your view on that? And what do we do about it if it is? And would the public be happy about it if it is? You know, that's really the missing link in all of this is the public. They don't really know the half of it, do they? They're beginning to find out because every few days almost there's some report of a paedophile attack on a child in the newspapers or somebody allegedly having abused children in the past coming out before the court. So we are finding out bit by bit, but we need to find out a lot more and quickly. Because if there is an agenda, for sure it's going to get speeded up. That's in the nature of agendas. They speed them up before people find out. The fourth one, child sexual abuse speaks for itself. Children traumatised at home, in foster care and in care homes, and threatened as they speak out. And this is where really what I find hardest to bear is the fact that the children cannot say to anybody what's happening to them in those situations. I mean, this calls for a Bill of Children's Rights. That's why I'm initiating this campaign for a Bill of Children's Rights. Children should have the right to speak and be heard from any age. And babies, if babies are crying and obviously not thriving, then there should be an investigation as to why a baby is not doing well. And then the fifth one is the horrible one, and it tends to run in families or particular sectors of society. I think we can safely say that euphemistically. So it's an intergenerational cycle. Abuse survivors become abusers and crimes are ritualized. So there's a criminal element there, there's a ritual element, and it can vary. And satanic ritual abuse is only one form of ritual abuse. So in a way it's good to have the catch-all. And I'm afraid child sacrifice is still going on in this country and around the world. So those are the 5 categories, and they all sort of link up behind the back of the houses, which is why I put the pink band there. And we need to know about them all and treat them as one big societal problem. And people should really be coming together to deal with them as an issue which goes right across the board, and it's not limited to just what goes on in the family court. Horrible as that is, we have an element in our society that for whatever reason are not kind, they are not ethical, they are not sensitive to children in the way that all of us in this room are. Why they should become like that, we have to still find out. There's a lot of obviously psychological analysis of how they came to be like that. Is it something genetic? You know, there's a lot of things we need to find out still about the whole phenomenon of paedophilia, as it's usually called, child abuse. Today, I believe there's a meeting of the Million Mask Brigade, Anonymous, on the streets. And I think they're going to take as one of their themes child abuse. So that's very satisfactory. It's a pity we can't sort of interact with them directly, but it's very good that they're taking that issue to the public as well. But I hope that people here will stick around for our evening session because we've got a lot of very interesting speakers. So we're going to be kicking off now with our informal part of our meeting today. Not that it's going to be formal later on. But as I say, I do want us to mingle, to interact, to have cups of tea in the bar. You might have to put pennies into the pot for the cups of tea, but all of that on that table is for you to enjoy. If you haven't managed to have a proper lunch or anything, just feel free to munch biscuits all afternoon and drink whatever I've put there. And I hope we're going to get to know each other. And I would like very much for all of you, if you would, to fill in this little form, which I think some have already done, which was given to you at the beginning, to tell us, as I say, where you come in on this issue, so that we begin to feel that we're getting a big network. I want us all to become friends and know each other and meet each other regularly from now on, because this is obviously going to be a very long campaign. We're not going to sort this problem in a few months flat. We're going to have to be working at it for several years. I'm going to be 70 next year, and I intend to live to 100, so I'm doing it 30 years. So I hope many of you will be alongside me and become the core, and the people out there online, because there's lots of people who aren't here, who are listening online or who will be listening online. You're very much part of the community too. It's a community that has to grow, and we have to do this as a band of brothers, sisters, friends, co-warriors, however you want to look at us. We need to positively take on this issue. And it's only by people positively taking on this issue that we're going to change society. And it's by being positive and not negative, because it's a very hard and very painful subject. Only by being positive are we going to draw in the public. And that's another reason for having a children's rights campaign, which everybody would subscribe to, and it doesn't shock anybody. You know, people agree privately that it's necessary for the reasons that I've outlined, but on the face of it, it doesn't upset anybody's day to be asked to sign up to a children's rights campaign. And let's have a children's human rights bill in Parliament, especially tailor-made for children, right? I think that's a way of bringing in the public in big numbers. That's what I hope, anyway. I did actually launch it earlier this year in June on Magna Carta Day because of the human rights aspect, 800th anniversary of Magna Carta. I've had to put it on one side because I've had illness in the family and also all this trouble from the elephant over there. So I've got a bit behind with it this year, but I do feel that it's going to have to be given a full term of this Parliament to bring this off. There will be resistance, there will be people who say, oh, we don't need that, we've got the Children's Act, we've got the Sexual Assault Act, I've forgotten the name of that one, we've got the Human Rights Act. Well, for how much longer? Because, of course, the politicians now are saying they want to get rid of that. So, all the more reason then to dive in with a children's rights bill. And I want to know whether you think it's a good idea, because I've sort of initiated this rather off my own bat, and I'm sort of waiting to hear whether the public are actually going to take to the idea. I did ask the audience of a play that was running not far from here in the Park Theatre in Finsbury Park in the summer, and it was called An Audience with Jimmy Savile. And the audience of Jimmy Savile speaks for itself. It was really going over his life and the horrible issues that came to light as a result of the full horror of it being known 3 years ago. And I asked the audience coming out of that whether they would be interested in having a children's rights bill to deal with this problem going into the future. And most of them were enthusiastic. And I got, without too much trouble, I got 500 or 600 signatures on a petition which I shall be taking to the MPs. So, anyway, I'm going to be speaking a bit more about that campaign this evening, so I won't say any more about that. But I'm now going to start the actual, well, that's it. I think, we have got actually 2 or 3 more people who might be helping chair, but I don't think it's necessary at this stage, because I think I'm just going to throw this mic over to you. And also, Ian Josephs is waiting to come in on Skype. Ian, it's very appropriate that Ian Joseph should start the Skype input, because Ian has been a children's rights campaigner and family rights campaigner, or whatever he would call himself, anti-abuse campaigner for 50 years, going well into retirement, and he's written huge amounts of stuff online about it, and I think he's written a book. But he's also been helping parents all this time. You know, if they need to escape, as many feel they do, he will help them with bits of money. So he really is our veteran example of what one should do when confronted with this issue. And he's been at it for 50 years. So I think without more ado, I'm going to try and, I'm not quite sure how to get on Skype, but maybe somebody will help me. And thanks also to David, our cameraman over there, for helping to organise the layout of this room and everything that's in it. So there we are. Can somebody get Skype up and running? I'm a techno duffer. I can't handle these sorts of things. Yeah. Okay. David, say hello.
Thank you to everybody for coming. Thank you to everybody for all the hard work that everybody has been doing for many years. George has been running Technotechnics for 60 years plus. I thought I would mention that as an introduction. It was, 30 years ago that I myself started cooperating with Technotechnics. And we started doing video recordings then. And that is why I'm here to now try and get the Skype connectivity so that we can hear people from France and other places who will want to speak with us. So can I pass the microphone back, because I now have to do the... I have to turn the computer around. Camera has to be able to record it. You might want to come and stand over here so you can see what we are getting on Skype. I'm sorry we haven't experimented this.
We haven't rehearsed the thing here, so it may be very chaos for a few minutes.
So this needs to come around here. Sorry, I had a problem before we started, so I wasn't able to do this an hour earlier.
Yes, you had a computer glitch.
Yeah, I had a computer glitch for an hour. The webcast has been sending out. This seems to have stopped.
We've got several cameras.
Yes.
One over there.
Thank you, George.
Igor over there. Rob over there.
We have been connected. That seems to have stopped.
Okay. Well, let's carry on chatting while this glitch.
Maybe some people want to say something?
Yes.
Ask questions? Or...
Indeed. There is right there.
Can I ask you to pass the microphone to whoever else wants to speak, please?
Just to mention that there was a report on Newsnight last night.
Oh, thank you.
It was about
Start with your name.
Mary. It was about children in a school for the deaf. And a long time ago, the person who they were accusing had the authorities delayed and didn't pursue it, and now he's dead. But they interviewed several people who now adults, of course, who went to this school, who described the abuse that took place at the school. And because they had communication difficulties, it was even more difficult for them to tell anybody, and then they were ignored. And anyway, they were interviewed last night for Newsnight, so it should be possible to get that on BBC Two iPlayer. I don't know if it's the only report, but it's quite a long report.
Thank you, Mary. But while we're on the subject of the news, and yes, let's all chase that up afterwards and hear that again. I think John Mann MP had a meeting of the parliamentary committee, or had a meeting in Parliament, or a debate in Parliament, I suppose you'd call it, at about 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon, on the issue of the National Inquiry and the fact that that's not bowling along as it should, the National Inquiry into historic child abuse. And I wondered if anybody had watched that, because I was off to the hospital yesterday. I couldn't tune into that. Anybody aware of that? So that's another one to chase up, to see what was said in Parliament yesterday afternoon.
They keep talking about in Parliament about bereavement. What was it then? We all know what the politicians are like. What's it like?
Yeah, it's mainly going out live. That's the reason.
Right, the politicians recently have been discussing bereavement and that how for a mother, I can't find out.
Maggie Tackle, by the way.
How terrible it is for a bereavement. I don't think it. I think what is much worse is forced adoptions, because you wake up every day, you don't know if that kid's alive or dead, you don't know where he's living, you don't know what's happening to that child. You might be lucky and get 3 contacts a year, but that child can never speak out. So for all these so-called politicians who are discussing bereavements, their own bereavements of their own children, what about all the thousands and thousands of parents who lose their children? In 2009, Cameron lost a child also, and I wrote to him and said, well, I'm very sorry, but at least the child has gone, but you can live with the memories. But what about the thousands of families? They have the memories, but they don't know where the child is. He never replies. He's the most ignorant bastard on earth. He really is. Excuse my language, but he is. Coming back to all the victims as well, the historical victims, it goes on and on, it's been going on for centuries. What people are not aware of is that every kid in care is covered by a life insurance. Who's been claiming the money over all these years? Hundreds of years, really. Well, the children have been trafficked, murdered, prostituted. Who's been claiming the money? You try asking the social services, what's the name of the insurance company? You will never know. But I know, because I do research. And everything I do is all put on the website for everyone to know. And I researched from 4 years ago into the insurances. So, of course, the governments are going to keep losing the paperwork, and it's all going to keep disappearing because of the insurance. And we know the insurances works with the banks as well. So we're talking millions and millions, or maybe billions of dollars, pounds, because of the thousands of kids who have gone missing, trafficked and whatever. So do pass on the word, please, that every kid in care is covered by an insurance. And you can always go to the website, Children Scream to be Heard. It's all there. All research is there. Right?
Can I just introduce myself? I just wanted to say hello because I can't stay for very much longer, so I've got to go to something else. I'm a BBC reporter who's taken an interest in this just because of a personal situation, and I have done a couple of stories for the BBC, and I'm very interested, and I continue to be. So just to say, people can get in touch with me. I'm Rachel Royce. I'm at BBC Inside Out South East. My Gmail is rachelroyce23@gmail.com, so do get in touch. This is awful in a way because I'm a regional journalist. It's easier for me to get things on air for people from our region, which is Kent and East Sussex, but I am interested in what everyone has to say.
Sorry, Rachel, was that Rachel Royce
23@gmail.com?
23.
But particularly if there's anyone from our area. Oh yeah, well I'll have a little chat with you. But one thing, I came to this story really just because my sister fostered out of goodness of her heart, but I knew the children when they were little, I met them when they were older, and they were just so kind of traumatised by the whole experience, having been taken by their parents. And my sister was trying to do good things, and in many ways she did. You know, so foster parents aren't bad people, but I think the whole being wrenched from your birth parent is a psychological, traumatic thing for the child, but also in this whole thing about, well, the children's interests are paramount. There's this terrible thing that, you know, even if a child has been wrongly taken, a judge will say, well, the child's better off where they are because they've been there for a number of years. And in a way you can see that, and I've met people who've been adopted and who've had very happy lives, but what about the parents? They're human beings too. What if an adopted child grew up and had a child and had it taken? You know, I mean, I think, personally, I think children obviously need their rights, but I think parents have to speak up that they have a right to be a parent. And that's enshrined in international law, the right to a family life. And it seems to me quite interesting that the European Petition Committee is looking at this as we speak, and is concerned about it. And I've interviewed and met the chair lady of the Petitions Committee, who is, as that is her view, what about the rights of the parents as well as the child? And I think you've got to try and push for that. Personally, that's just, you know, my personal view and nothing to do with the BBC or anything like that. I'm probably not even allowed to express my view, really. But that is what I think. I see absolutely traumatised parents. And these aren't cats and dogs that are being wrongly taken. I had my cat wrongly taken by a cat's home who didn't know it belonged to me, and somebody had handed it in. And, you know, these are people's children. And even if the children have a nice life with their adopted family, the parents have been horribly traumatised, you know, and obviously there are cases when the children can't stay with the family because the family are deranged or evil or whatever, but it's really rare, I think. You know, the whole baby P thing has made social services very scared, and they're trying to do a job and they're trying to protect children, but I think it's been a massive overreaction. And personally, I think this push to adoption is, well, we mustn't have another baby P. No, of course we mustn't. But just, you know, but we don't have enough resources in social services, so instead of trying to help parents stay united with their children, which would perhaps mean more money, well, adoption's cheaper, isn't it? I think there is an element of that, I have to say. Obviously, you know, the government thinks it doesn't want children languishing in care, which you can see that kind of point, but I do think the adoption is also, to them, an easy way out. But also, no family is perfect, and what if, you know, an adopted child's family then has some sort of trauma and the family falls apart? I've got a very good friend who was adopted because his mother was a single parent, and 30 years ago she was persuaded it wasn't the right thing. Well, when he was 10, his adoptive father died, and he said, well, I ended up with a single parent mother anyway. I mean, there's, in my view, no such thing as a perfect family that's going to stay perfect forever. And personally, I think it's quite shocking what you were saying about when you see the posters and everything, come and foster, you get paid 50 grand a year. That's not the right approach, is it? I don't think so. Anyway, just my own personal view, not the BBC's view.
Could I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Would you ever do a programme on this
I've done
issue?
2 programmes, yeah.
And has the BBC aired it?
Yes, I did an item for BBC South East, 2 items filmed.
What year was that?
Last year and the year before, and they both went out on Network News. One featured the guys who are helping Ian Joseph and Brian Rothery, and the second film was looking at the European concerns actually, and the fact that the European Parliament had come out with a report saying there were abusive practices that should be avoided, and whilst they did not condemn the UK, a number of the abusive practices that they said if you see this happening a lot it should be a cause for concern, included practices that seem to go on in the UK, like a lot of adoption, a lot of forced adoption, and another real concern was this not returning a child because of the effluence of time, which means that if the child has been with adoptive parents or foster parents and is perfectly happy, then don't disturb the child. And they are concerned about this. European politicians are concerned. And another big concern is the fact that when a child is adopted, that they lose contact with birth parents in the UK. And I think possibly social services are beginning to consider that they might change this, but it hasn't changed radically yet. And I think that would be a massive improvement. Because also nowadays you've got social media, so when a child is 12, 13 years old, they will perhaps start looking for their birth parents, find their birth parents, find they weren't ogres, they were just human beings who made mistakes. and resent perhaps their adoptive parents for not ever letting them see them. So I think
Has it been highlighted that that social workers can and do take children away from loving family on the off chance that they possibly might suffer psychological harm in the future?
Yeah, I did try and highlight.
I mean, that is one
film.
huge issue that has allowed one child every 20 minutes to be taken from a family. Without that policy, they couldn't take so many children.
Yeah, no,
that policy needs to be highlighted and pushed, because a lot of people that don't know about this, they say, well, something must be wrong with the family for them to take for the social services. But when it's known widely across the board that social workers take a child from a family just in case there might be a psychological harm in the future. That could happen to anybody. And that will get the public on board to realise how corrupt the social services are. Because it's not just incompetent.
Personally, I think you have to be. I think using words like corruption and talking about social services getting money from dead children, children. Well, I think it's all unhelpful, because I know social workers, and I'm friends with social workers, and
I'm not saying they're evil.
They're not. I just think
the policy.
system.
Take for instance, now a policy maker, what's his name, Rock. He was Cameron's advisor. A policy maker who makes the policies for social services and stuff is found out to be a long-time paedophile, and he's been condemned now and prosecuted for it and found guilty. Now, he was making policies on family law all those years ago that's now become set in stone.
I mean, I don't know, I can't really talk
so
about it. I'm not having an argument with you, because I don't know.
No, but I'm just saying there is corruption involved.
I'll hand the microphone to you, because I feel I've said all I want to say.
Sorry, no, thank you.
Can I
really.
come back to the social workers? Sorry.
Yeah.
I've been a campaigner for over 40 years, and I've won every campaign. Okay, but this is going to be one where I should go to my grave and it will still be going on, because there's so much corruption. Social workers in this country, many of them are bought from India, Africa, Romania, now big time. And what happens? Anyone in a third world country can buy a CV for a few pounds.
Yeah, no, that is.
And in their coming, they're getting jobs, and I've got the research and I know who's doing it. And that what these social workers get is they get thousands of pounds reallocation, they get support with housing and support with the banking. Now, not only that, they get employed by the social services, and at the same time, a lot of them have their own companies, outside companies. So what better than to steal the kids, get paid by the social services, use your own outside company to do the assessments and get more money.
Yeah, no.
And this is what people need to know what's going on. It's true. I run a helpline, and I've spoken to hundreds and hundreds of families. I've been on the streets of London and filmed the homeless people from the care system. The corruption inside, unless the people come en masse and march, not one kid on this planet in England has a chance. Not one kid, unless people march. They'll march for war to say what? This stupid country? The men will march to war, the women will as well now, but they won't march for our children who are being abused in every single way. And the social workers, also when they're using their own outside companies for assessments, that is a conflict of interest, and that's breaking the law. So all the families need to find out who your social workers are, what companies they have registered, and even if they don't have their own companies registered, they could be registered in their family name or a cousin or whatever. The fiddle is massive.
I think that's an interesting story to try and
It is. Barking and Dagenham.
The media get notices slapped on them.
I know, it's really hard. It's a it's the hardest story I've ever had to report.
There's social workers in Barking and Dagenham have been proved they've got a fostering agency. So that's a conflict of interest. The more children they get, the more money they can make. And that is happening now. A case now has proved this. So as a journalist, maybe you'd like to do a story on
As I said,
that.
I'm a regional journalist, so I know that's really disappointing for you, and I wish, I was a national journalist, could help more, but anything that happens in Kent or East Sussex do bring to my attention, and I will try and
Kent
do
and East
something about
Sussex.
it, especially,
No, it's brilliant that the BBC,
corruption, or something like that, obviously very interested. But, I'm not the only journalist, so do contact your own. If you're not getting anywhere with the national media, I would recommend that you can start trying to get a story in the regional press, and then, it can get picked up in the regional press, so don't ignore your local reporters.
Because I rang up,
What about if they
Ross,
don't-
and I rang the recorder. They
ignore you?
they would say they were doing it to my children were returned. Everyone's worried about being done for libel.
This was a local paper, was it? I tried to be local BBC reporters, but it is an incredibly difficult story to report as a reporter, because we get told we can't mention this, we can't mention that, we can't identify, and I've had a council try and slap in 2 injunctions.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think those policies are enforced? It's because of the corruption in high places.
I don't know about, I haven't come across evidence of that myself, and I'd be very happy if you showed me evidence.
Okay.
Personally, I think they were, they got a particular case I was involved in, they got a concern about the way the parent behaves and what it might be affecting the child, so I don't think it was corruption, but, I'm sure if there's evidence of corruption that you can give me, particularly in my region, I'd be very interested to hear.
We know it's corruption, but we know they do have a secret agenda, definitely. When you watch the behaviours of social workers and their management, and how a family will have one social worker and they write a report about that child, and then another one will come into play and then write another report. So
they're terribly under-resourced as well, social services, so I think since Baby P there's been a panic reaction, let's just get the child away, rather than trying to deal with the child's situation.
If that's the truth, why do they say so many lies? It's the same for everyone. They make up lie after lie after lie. When you see each other, I haven't been able to see mine. They've just put an injunction on me. So a few weeks ago, I was going to fight it. I got arrested for another reason because they said I didn't turn up at court, which I had done.
Do you think maybe, I don't know why that happens, I don't
So
know
I'm
if
letting it
it's
go, I'm
quality
not giving it
staff,
against Crown.
quality recruitment.
Even the injunction's full of lies.
Yeah, I don't know.
Can I just ask a question?
Yeah,
I don't know if
sure.
anybody can answer it, but has anybody ever took social services to court and won?
We're on the verge of it, and we're going to be CHR at the moment.
Has anybody ever done it?
I don't know, I'm sorry. I've got to go, I'm really sorry, but thank you very much, everybody.
We're taking to court.
Did you win?
We're at the CHR stage at the moment, so we kind of have faces shown on the thing. But what we did was, after the final court hearing, what you've got to do is you have to do it individually. If you against the social workers, you cannot do it against social services, you have to do it individually. Because we got as far as the High Court, and they can hide behind a thing called an absolute privilege. So whatever they submit to court, they can hide behind it. And what you have to do, and the Master Yoxer who saw us, said because of the malicious falsehoods and everything else that's been stated against us and my family, the only way to go through it is for the ECHR. So we got accepted by the European Court of Human Rights, and at the moment we're getting the last bits and pieces of it together to send over, because it is a long process. We've been doing this since 2009. We lost our first grandson 2009 for an injury we didn't know about, and it took the woman from Canada 455 days to actually see him. And you see that, and then you get an IRO who's not independent, because they work for our local authority as well. So what you're doing is you're fighting against the system, and they're allowed to submit reports without actually seeing the kids.
So, say, you take a private prosecution on?
That's what we're doing.
A private prosecution?
Yeah, you can only do it through a private one. You can only, what you've got to do is, they said to us, get a solicitor, or well, I was £8 over, so we could represent ourselves. You have to get a solicitor who's not in the area that you're in, because they're all in it together. I found it out sitting there, and they were talking about for where we come from in Portsmouth, right? Because we're going to leave that up, I suppose, get our coach back down again. But anyway, and they were talking about football, and I butted in, it all went quiet. And then not one of the questions what my daughter wanted answered, was put there. They was all laughing and joking together, and I found that was disrespectful to my daughter, because they should be fraternising one or the other. And then what we did was we got one from Chichester. He said, I can't deal with this here. So then No, we in Portsmouth, so we had to go to Chichester. Then Chichester said we had to go to the High Court, which we did. And that was November 2012, wasn't it? November 2012. And he said that they can hide behind a thing called an absolute privilege, which is really hard to break. But the thing that you've got to get on is malicious falsehoods and then work your way back.
Even if you've got 100% proof?
Yeah, what we did, well, one of them was that I had a brain hemorrhage in 2001. We didn't get any help off the state, so we went to a loan company. And for the CAB helping us keep our house, we did a television thing in 2010 to warn people about this thing. Well, the boys were back with us, right? And the team leader who was on sick, saw it and said, sent the social worker straight down our house and said, your address was seen on the telly. And we said, well, then we put the boys at risk. And we think, hang on, we took this guy out in 2005. The boys weren't born until 2008, 2010, 2011. You know, and they weren't even around. So then they took the boys off us. She lied in a planning meeting to say that she saw our address. After our grandson was adopted, she admitted to a policewoman that she did see it. And we got that. And we got the proof. But the team leader's abusing her powers. And they also said in the courtroom that our daughter signed a concession and a confession which cannot be found in any court bundle. And also Section 47 was done. That can't be found in any court bundle either. They never did anything. So what you've got to do is you really have to research it before you actually do it. We've done it and we're still doing it now. We support you guys 100% with regard to secret family courts and the forced adoptions. That's the thing that really affects us. Right, the other people do it. But we haven't done that. I mean, I'm on loads of things on Facebook with different things about forced adoption. Britain's Got Talent into kids, child snatching, you know, and things like that. I've been on more. That's how I found you guys. We travelled up from Portsmouth. We support you 100%. Because it's not just us. You've got like people from Sheffield, you've got down here, up there. But you don't get any help, but be careful. But when you go to the High Court, they will tell you that they can hide behind an absolute privilege.
Absolute privilege.
Yeah.
What was your name again?
Graham.
That's Graham. Thanks, Graham. A long fight you've had.
Back on stage.
Yes. We'd love to hear from you, actually.
I've nothing to say at the moment.
You haven't.
It'd be nice to, well, it's nice to know that other people are in the same boat as us.
Yes, and as I say, many people out online as well.
Yeah.
I've tried to have demos, you know, for parents who've lost children or been abused by the court system.
My grandchildren are with my sister in care. Two of them are, one's adopted. We lost two of them, my sister in care. And we had to make a decision, because of the lies that have been said about us, we made the decision not to see the children, because they're going to the planning meetings, so they're hearing all the bad things saying about the birth family. So they can't say anything about us. But then when they put it in there, we get a copy of the minutes of the meeting, and we respond to it, and we got told we complained again, the boys have been taken away from my sister. Right? But they didn't know that what I did was I met up with the independent reviewing officer to sort out my daughter's contact, because they only wanted to give my daughter 2 times a year. The judge said you don't start at a low number and you work up, you start at a high number and work down if it don't work. So she gave them 6. They messed up twice. We messed up once. We get it put in the planning meeting. So what I did was I went on Amazon and I bought a watch and I bought a pen, and in them both of them it's got a video and a camera. And they didn't know that I recorded them. And then you can't use that in court, but you can use the transcript of that. So they sent the minutes of the meeting, I sent the proper one. And they said, where'd you get that from? I said, Amazon. And they couldn't work it out. But what you do is you charge it up, you put it on there. I bet you're supposed to tell them you're doing it, but I didn't. I thought, no, why should I? Because all they do is they get some person that writes down the biggest load of rubbish on what they wanted to see in their minutes of their meeting. But what you've got is a copy. When you download it on your laptop, you've got a copy of the original thing, and you've got their faces.
I was told that any of your recordings or anything like we've just spoken about, as long as you go and get it signed by a solicitor, then it can be used legally.
I didn't know that.
Well, I don't know if it's 100% true, but that's what I've been told.
You can't use